Hey everybody, Sensei Paul here, Sensei Allison. We thought it'd be kind of cool if we brought some interesting conversations to you guys. This may become a part of our longer series in video podcasting. This is all new for us, so be gentle. We've not done anything like this before. So
we're taking no feedback at this time.
We are taking all the feedback that is nice. Okay, be a little bit gentle. We've never done this before. So the idea is we get questions. This academy's been open for 15 years. I've been training for 25 years. How long have you actually been training for at this point?
12.
12 years. Allison has created and runs this amazing Warrior Women program. I have a huge dearth of self-defense training outside of the realm of just straight up jiu-jitsu, masters in psychology, sans COVID, most of the way through my master's in psychology. I'll get back to finishing that up at some point, maybe, we'll see. But we thought we would talk out, this is gonna be us working through some problems with you guys. Some of the things we have pretty good ideas on, some of them we're gonna have conversations about that and see where it goes, okay? So, you wanna cue up our first one?
So starting off today, we are gonna be talking about the difference between martial arts and self-defense. Now, we do jiu-jitsu, which is a martial art. So we're gonna kind of talk about how our style of jiu-jitsu and our martial art and how the Metro West Academy fits into actually both categories. Both of these, like if you think of like a Venn diagram, kind of how they both cross over, how some are more beneficial for self-defense and how some are just really fun martial arts and getting artsy or super creative and really working more towards that.
This is where our awesome editing team will throw a Venn diagram up on the screen or something like that. Yeah, exactly. Oh, is that our screenshot? So we're gonna run down kind of the disparate elements of martial arts and then self-defense and look at where they cross over, right? Because that's kind of the important thing. And it seems to be the thing in my experience where people fall down on not understanding these are separate, they have a lot of crossover. So martial arts. What's your favorite thing? We've said many times.
Yes.
Allison has said many times. Go ahead, you can be honest about this part.
I really like the martial arts side of the Metro West Academy. I think there's a lot of really fun things that we do. We do a lot of like grappling. We do a lot of different super fun techniques, small circle jiu-jitsu. We do a ton of just different stuff. We talk about boxing, which is its own category in itself. But even just like pretending you're a boxer for 15 minutes during class is definitely something that's super cool. Or getting on the ground and grappling in like a competition with some of my peers, especially if they're my size, my weight, skill level.
Not 100 pounds heavier than you?
No, that's not fun at all. But kind of having that competitive spirit. By nature, I'm an athlete. I like doing sports.
That's fine. That's a good thing.
I like that competitive nature. So when we do grappling with classmates and we do sparring matches and we do things like that, I really love that like competitive drive. Mm-hmm. However, it's not very good sometimes when we start talking about self-defense specifically, especially.
It's less sexy.
Yes.
It's less engaging. It gets dangerous for self-defense training to have a competitive element, right? That's where people get really badly injured as a result if you're making it competitive as well. Because you're not trying to pull your punches, you're not trying to keep your partner safe. Obviously in the guise of self-defense training, we're trying not to hurt our teammates in class, but you're running up against a very different topic in terms of what you're training. So with for those who don't know, your athletic background is?
I'm a hockey player. By trade.
From what time? By trade. Technically you're a martial arts instructor and program director and photographer by trade, by habit and?
By hockey.
When did you first get on the ice?
I was, I think, 4 years old.
And when did you play competitively on a team until?
I played until college. I played 1 year in college.
No, you played last Sunday, didn't you?
Well,
you still play.
And then I retired, and then obviously I missed it, so I came back.
You went to the retirement league of shuffleboard for hockey players?
I did. Bocce, actually. And then now I play on a women's team.
Got it.
And that's like 6 months out of the year, so it's
a lot, yeah. It's the thing you really enjoy doing.
I do.
So under the martial arts umbrella, we have punches and kicks, like Allison said, the grappling elements, right? If you want to refer to that as either judo or BJJ, wrestling, Greco-Roman wrestling, right? All of these hit that boundary. Boxing, Muay Thai, kickboxing, sparring. The Filipino martial arts, your stick and knife fighting. Obviously, you're talking about stick and knife, so you're talking about lethal force encounters. But for any of my friends out there that have done any type of you've gotten into the Filipino martial arts, it gets very dancey very quick. For my friends who do Filipino martial arts, you're gonna be mad at me, sorry Rafi. There's a lot of OCD.
But it's super fun.
It's super fun. I love it. It actually really appeals to my brain. All those stick patterns, I joke that it makes the OCD part of my brain just like this little dopamine for the OCD part of my brain.
The same way.
Is it all useful for self-defense? No, it's just not. Is it a lot of fun to do? Yes, 100%. If you like gymnastic style martial arts, the jumping, kicking stuff, I'm not your guy to teach that.
No.
Allison, no?
I broke my wrist trying to do a backflip once.
Did you really?
Yeah,
I didn't know that story.
Yep.
I just broke everything else getting thrown by my friends. So, I'm not the jumpy, flippy guy. Is that cool stuff? Yes. Does it have anything to do with self-defense? I don't see how. We have a society where John Wick and Jason Bourne has informed a lot of what we think is pugilism and fighting and combatives, and that's not what self-defense looks like. The guy's an assassin, theoretically, right? If you're a high-level, high-trained assassin and your job is to take out the target as rapidly as possible, maybe those skills becomes more relevant. I don't think so. However, for most of us where we're dealing with, disparate force, meaning I'm larger than the person I'm attacking, if I'm a bad guy, right, and I'm smaller than the person attacking me. Unequal initiative, meaning you're getting surprised, right? You're not planning when you go to the groceries or to the mall or out with your girls or whatever. You're not planning to get attacked that night. You're planning not to get attacked, right? You're planning to go enjoy yourself. So having to deal with that surprise, that unequal initiative is a big deal.
At least most people. I'm always planning.
Well, you're a little different, right? One of the cool things about self-defense training over time, again, more self-defense mindset, is you go out not looking for trouble, but at least more ready for trouble. This becomes an interesting thing where, and this is a whole other conversation in the future, where your capstone project, do you want to talk about that for a second? What you found?
Yeah, so
I thought it was fascinating.
Yeah, so for my master's degree, I had to do a capstone end of the year project, and they let you kind of pick your topic, and then you have to find articles and kind of conduct your own research on it. So I surprisingly did women's self-defense.
Shocker. Whoa.
Shocker. So I did women's self-defense, and across the board, every article, all the research that I've put into this, it basically states that any type of self-defense training is helpful. So it boosts confidence, it boosts self-esteem, and it also just gives you more awareness. And that's kind of one of the biggest takeaways in a lot of my classes, is just that awareness piece, and just kind of walking with that confidence is going to prevent a lot of people encroaching on your boundaries, a lot of people just trying to like mess with you, I guess, or so that confidence, making sure that you're walking with a purpose, or you're having those like alpha commands, and just that awareness of what's going on around you really does deter a lot of different types of criminals.
To put a highlight on that, because I'm not the one who did the research, Allison did. When we were talking about it later, the thing I thought was most fascinating, you told me you thought you were going to find out how women did after getting attacked based on their training. But what you actually discovered was the chance of them getting attacked went down by
a good amount.
It's been a while since you've done it,
numbers, yeah,
but it wasn't like 1%. It was
it was a lot. It was even just an hour training course, or a 6-week program, or even we do the Warrior Women. It's 8 or 9 classes. That obviously the more training, the better. Right. However, even just one of those self-defense classes really just made women a little bit more confident, worked on their self-esteem, and gave them some more awareness, which out of all of those 3 things, those are the 3 things that we stress the most when we're talking about women's self-defense specifically.
So we've kind of obviously moved to the self-defense side of the umbrella, right? So we have the martial arts, the fun physical part of it, right? Competition is obviously a huge part of that for most of the martial art trainings out there, or art or performance, right? Under the self-defense side, you're gonna hear us talk a lot, guys, when you get to self-defense world, about things put out by a guy named Rory Miller. If you already know who Allison and I are, you're going to know that, you know, we are titanic fans of Rory's work, the compendium of work that he's put out there over the years. It's definitely going to be something you're going to want to look into. And under self-defense, in our mind, you're not working on self-defense if you're not working on the basic 7 things that Rory talks about. And I'll just run through the list real quick. Again, personally, go read Rory's books if you want more detail about it. Number 1 is the legal and ethical ramifications of a self-defense situation. So legal, you can defend yourself successfully and then still go to jail, and we don't want that, right? Ethical is, what are the things that can cause you a freeze? If I teach you to gouge out somebody's eyeball, but you know you can't deal with that, or somebody comes with a level of force you were never trained or expected for, we're going to talk about freeze later, but you're going to have to deal with that as part of the self-defense situation. Violence dynamics. How do bad guys pick their targets, and how do bad guys attack certain targets? You know, I'm a 6'2", 230-pound bald guy with a beard. I'm likely to get attacked differently than Allison is, right? Or, you know, and even more, Allison's a very athletic female. She's probably going to get attacked differently than a more petite female. Or a more petite guy. Can you say petite guy? A smaller dude. I don't know what the right term is there. So understanding who you are in the situation and how you're likely to get predated. Number 3 is avoidance. This is one of those ones where martial arts screws up badly. I'm going to try not to swear on this because we want it to go out to the general public. And if you know me at all, you know that's going to be a real challenge. People talk about, well, avoid the threat. People talk about, well, run away from the threat. And that's coming up, you know, as part of this, right? Well, you can do a lot of training and never actually put a single repetition into running away. You know, when I first started working with Rory, all of a sudden I was like, oh, we've talked about run away a lot and never done a single repetition of it, which means it's not hardwired into the brain, it's talked about. You have to actually put repetitions into it. So during Allison's Warrior Women.
Yeah, we do. We talk a lot during classes when I give them, I don't necessarily give them techniques, I give them kind of principles to kind of work through their techniques. Because if I'm giving them a technique, they're trying to remember specific steps. If I give them principles, they're going to be more likely to remember because it's ingrained in what the principles are. So basically, when we talk about this, if it's like a rear attack or a front grab or something, we're always talking about running away. The instructors that are here are amazing at making sure that these women actually run. One of the drills we did a couple weeks ago with rear attack, they were able to get out of the rear attack, and some of them were just standing there looking at their bad guy like, how did I do? And I had instructors basically chase them off the mat. And I was like, if your instructor tags you, then you owe me 10 burpees. And let me tell you, a room full of women do not want to do 10 burpees. So they were very, very much like, all right, I'm gonna go to the safety. I've given them designated safety areas to run to, and they were hightailing it because that's what I want them to kind of walk away with in this experience. I don't want them to have to control somebody on the ground or teach them crazy judo throws that are, yes, very fun to do. However, in this type of application where I only have them for 10 hours total, or 6 hours total, that's going to be on a very, that's like 2 years of training to be able to kind of work through those issues.
And on the male ego side of that, it feels bad to avoid a threat. It feels bad. It can feel bad to talk your way out. We're not bright creatures, right? We're hard, as Allison feels. Allison,
we're say that again.
Yeah, I know. We're hard. Some of the stuff is hardwired into us. Again, going back to Rory's material, we talk about the monkey dance. I've done a lot of training over a lot of years, and I still feel it in the back of my head when I get, somebody gets on my face, and I'm like, the dumbest thing you can do in self-defense, the spread yourself, big ape gorilla. It's still hardwired into my brain. It's there. I feel it coming out. And so working through that in our classes on the self-defense side of it, and having conversations with especially young men who have bigger, issues with ego and stuff. Guys, this is the highest level order win. If you can avoid, there's no higher level order win that exists. So, yes, I understand it's going to be really cool. I beat the crap out of the guy. Yeah, but then I went to jail because mutual combat's a thing. So, working through that. The counter assault, this is your dealing with a surprise attack. If you get waffled in the opening 5/10 of a second, then there's no value in any of the rest of your training. Your coolest armbar in the world is useless if you're drooling on the floor because you got knocked unconscious. So dealing with the counter assault's a big thing. And then another one we talk about is, we talk about fight or flight, right? But we forget that the first stopgap is the freeze. We're going to all have, and there's a couple of different types of freeze: physiological, psychological, sociological. We'll talk about that more in the future. We're all going to have to deal with some type of freeze. Part of our training is to override that freeze as rapidly as possible. So in your warrior women class, like, and my adult jiu-jitsu class in particular, kids, a little bit different training on purpose. We'll talk about that another time maybe if you guys want. Let us know, give us feedback. A lot of men, adult men, have never been grabbed and pick up off the ground. One of my advantages as being a larger human is I can pick people up that are very used to being fully rooted to the earth, and to watch their eyes go wide because they've never been tossed. You know, 6 foot men rarely get tossed around like a rag doll, and they freeze hard. Women, unfortunately, if they've been through some type of trauma, we find that can put them into a freeze, or if they've never been grabbed in a severe manner. So you want to talk about that?
And we always talk about obviously doing going outside your comfort zone, but not so much that you're gonna break down, because there's so many different backgrounds, and some people have different training levels, but also trauma points too. One woman, she didn't want to be grabbed by the throat, which was totally fine, and just making it a point that this is a very safe training environment, and to do it here is going to be a little bit more of a beneficial outcome than if you have to experience this again. Hopefully you never have to experience it again, but if you do it here, and that was kind of that difference between that freeze. We had a lot of women never really been grabbed by the throat, and I always will say, work with each other, work with people you've never met before, because it can get weird if somebody's grabbing you by the throat and you've never met them. But most likely, somebody that's going to be grabbing you by the throat either might be an acquaintance and you might be awkward with them anyways, or somebody you've never met. Plus, we do have male instructors that do walk around, and I always tell them, if you want a more realistic attack, ask one of our other senseis, ask one of our coaches, because they can give you kind of that more realistic grab, that more
higher
realistic
level of force. Yeah,
correct. And
they're bigger meat puppets.
They are, and I think that's a really important lesson, because it does kind of, the first time you actually feel that, you do freak. You're like, this is not what I was expecting. But kind of after
100%.
after that first initial grab, or that first initial stop, then you can kind of see them work through that problem, and the more they do it, the better, the more equipped they are to handle that if that were to happen outside of these walls.
You mentioned pushing up your comfort or your boundary zone a little bit, right? So, and I can't attribute this quote because I've heard it from 3 different people. I don't remember where the original source is. It's probably Rory. A good training facility needs to be a physiologically safe environment, or physically safe environment, to do psychologically dangerous things. And the training itself, the training modalities, the training instructors need to provide a psychologically safe place to do physically dangerous things. I'm going to let the person choke me to near unconsciousness. I'm going to let them throw me down to the ground, and I'm going to trust that they're going to do that with a level of safety, or might take my joints out to furthest extension of how it goes. So providing both of those is vital for the self-defense side of the house. Yeah, it's important on sport, martial art, grappling too, but a lot of sport stuff, the rules that are put into place for sport are put in place to make sure that the dangerous stuff can't even ever happen, right? You just don't, for grappling a long time, heel hooks weren't allowed because they were just too dangerous. That's why if you look at the evolution of MMA over time, the original MMA, UFC 1, you weren't allowed to fish hook somebody's cheek and rip it out. You weren't allowed to smash them in the groin, and you weren't allowed to pull hair, and you weren't allowed to gouge your eyes. And I think that was it. I'm pretty sure that was all that was allowed, was not allowed. And you had vastly different sizes, and it was kind of fun to watch in that regard. But it sure as heck wasn't self-defense. The evolution of it and the rules that got put into place, there's a whole fun conversation about what the rules are, where they came from, that kind of stuff. But the rules are there to keep people from being horribly injured over time in a fight format. Speaking of which, number 6 is the fight, right? So at some point in self-defense, you actually talked about fighting. We're biased. We're going to say jiu-jitsu and Japanese or Americanized jiu-jitsu as we train it. And again, future conversation for future video. But you notice out of the 7 things, only one of them became the actual physical part that is martial arts, right? So in that Venn diagram, here we are. Here's number 6 floating in that center line, that where the magic happens, what I wrote down over here in my notes. Because it's the fun part, right? And then number 7, and this is the one that like almost never gets touched or worked on, is the aftermath, right? So what do you, when you work with the Warrior Women, what do you deal with them here?
So what we do is we have a designated coach or 2 that'll kind of be floating around the mat or in a kind of different area, and the goal is to defend from the attack. A lot of times there is like a theme of the week, so a ground defense or a rear attack or somebody pulling your hair or somebody putting you in a headlock. So we do have a theme. So defend yourself against that. Run as fast as you can to that coach in that safety, and you have to tell me where you are. You have to tell me what they were wearing. You have to tell me what they looked like, and you have to close your eyes when you talk to them, because you can't just look at them like, oh, they were 6'2" and bald and beard. So,
and this is all practice for?
And this is all practice for
calling 911, right?
Exactly. And a lot of them will get to the coach, and they'll be like, and the coach is kind of queued up on this, and they'll say, where are you calling from? And they're like,
and they glitch, right? They freeze.
Natick, Massachusetts. And if you're calling from the cell phone, it makes it a little bit more challenging for them to find your actual location. We do have a landline here, which is good. However, calling from a cell phone, it gets bounced around to different towers. It goes to the state first, and then they push it out to the local Natick, which is where we're from. But sometimes knowing the address is going to be a better, faster response than them trying to guess where you are. And just being practiced with what are some key features with this person, especially if they do take off or they're running in the other direction, from there.
So other parts in the aftermath are medical. Do you have first aid and trauma training? And please note, first aid training or CPR training is not trauma training. Most of those CPR classes do not show you how to stop egregious bleeding. That's important. I like the term, if you look at ICE training with Rob Pincus, he talks about a dynamic critical incident. Because we think about bad guys attacking us, but we're very likely to get into a car accident at some point in our life, right? And be bleeding horribly in that situation, or come up along a car accident, or somebody falls off a ladder, and you have to stop that bleed, right? That's a dynamic, changing, critical, meaning important incident. Something happened. Lawyers. I heard a quote recently. Every time you pull a trigger on a firearm, I'm a firearms instructor, every time you pull a trigger, there's 2 lawyers attached to every bullet. Your lawyer and their lawyer. It is entirely possible, and your state, your province, your region determines some of this. We're in Massachusetts. For those watching this outside in the rest of the world, we have to be very conscious of what the legal ramifications are of what we do. Massachusetts, not long ago, a woman defended herself against a sexual assailant in Massachusetts with a taser. At that time, tasers were illegal in Massachusetts, or stun guns, and Massachusetts prosecuted her not for the physical act of self-defense, but for possession of that electronic device. You know, went to the Supreme Court. You can look that up online if you're curious. So you can defend yourself successfully and then still have a $50,000 lawyer bill later that you have to deal with, and that's a marginal win. And then you might have to deal with your own personal. You know, one of our important quotes is, no one can tell you that you survived wrong. If you are here to talk about the situation later, congratulations, you won. What that looks like and how you deal with your moral ramifications later, your ethical situations afterwards, and what your willingness is at a later time. Again, Allison talked earlier about women coming to self-defense training in the aftermath. Wonderful, that's amazing. It can be a bit of a challenge because you did get assaulted in some way, and this can be we careful about this term, but like a triggering event that brings old memories up, right?
Yeah, which is very valid.
Yep.
But trying to just work through some of that is also another challenge. Right.
So we've got our martial arts side, we've got our self-defense side. You know, obviously you can make the self-defense part of the physical training a lot of fun with the martial arts side. I think anytime we do breakaway drills, so people are grabbing onto you, pulling you, whatever, and you're working to an escape zone. Of course, there's a beep beep. We tried really hard to make this as quiet as we could for the best sound. And literally 7 feet up way outside of our door is a giant truck beeping as they're trying to back up because, and they're not even supposed to be in this area, but either way. Best laid plans of mice and men. Anyway, you can make the training very, very fun, okay? Towards escape, where you make it competitive. Who can be the first one there fastest, right? We do these scramble up from the ground drills. Who's the first one on their feet? Of course, it becomes competitive. We always warn people like, all right guys, no eye gouging, but the first one on their feet wins. Yeah. You don't have to be the fastest. I'm big and slow. I'm probably gonna mess with you on the way up. And that's a totally viable way to approach it, right?
Yep.
I think the truck's gonna hit our door.
I think it's just gonna come straight through.
It's gonna come right
it's
through
like
the
the
door.
Kool-Aid Man.
So don't be afraid of challenging the martial arts side of your house and incorporating more of those self-defense drills. You know, we do some brain processing stuff where we try to add, you know, hitting pads and asking trivia questions. We haven't done that in a while. Watching people try to process trivia questions while they're also doing a physical skill.
To be fair, I can't do that anyway.
Well, listen, again, but you're the athlete, right? You get the physical skills down really quickly, which is why for you the challenge is a lot more the cerebral side of the house sometimes, right? You don't give yourself enough credit with that. You do a great job teaching the warrior women class.
I didn't say that, but when I'm hitting pads and you're telling me to do 3 times 3, I'm like, I need my fingers. What do you mean?
Wait, okay, good.
3, 6, not 9. It's 9. The answer's 9.
I actually think it's kind of fun to watch people coaching that type of drill and then coming up with trivia questions because that's actually in many ways the harder part. But either way, so don't be afraid to incorporate more of those elements in, make them part of your fun martial arts side of the house as well. But you know, inside that magical crossover Venn diagram, we have how to hit things correctly, right? How to make a good fist, how to power generation, how to hit things hard. If something's worth hitting, it's probably worth hitting with a lot of power. Escape drills, agility drills are, I think in my mind, a big part of both of these worlds, right? If you are hobbled, your self-defense needs don't go away, just your physical abilities become decreased or diminished. So how do you deal with that? Can you still do your martial art training with a bad shoulder or a bad hip? Can you incorporate that into how you work, right? I mean, we've both had injuries over the years, we've had lots of students with injuries over the years. How do we play with those elements? You know, the grappling and the throwing and the joint blocking and the choking and the weapons work, tons of fun. Mm-hmm. How much of it is extra? In your experience with the warrior women class, like you left a lot of stuff out.
Yep.
Why? Like, how did you go through that process? Would you pick that?
Basically, I thought if we only have 8 hours together, kind of what's my top priorities? Right. Like, are we going to be doing some judo throws? Probably not. That's probably hour like 15, 16. And that's if they're coming consistently.
Yeah.
And we get a lot of women that just pop in for 1 or 2.
Yep.
So if I only get an hour with some of these women, what's going to be the best possible way to teach this? What's going to be the best possible way to get that message across?
Yep.
So just kind of working through different age groups. I have a couple seminars coming up. We have a high school group.
Yep.
We have a elementary school, like 5th grade, and then we have the older crowd.
And they all face different problems.
And they all face very different problems. They all have very different solutions for the problems.
Your last summer junior warrior women class, where you had them come in like a going out outfit, and some of the older teenage girls came in
high heels and
short skirts and to watch them try to run in heels. The ones who were really athletic did a pretty good job with it.
Yeah, I was actually very impressed.
But also we're on like a nice clean carpeted area. There's not a lot of debris and rubble and cobblestones if you're in Boston, right?
Correct.
I think that would create some bigger challenges for them.
Even just like if I wear jeans versus if I wear leggings, different restrictions that I'm going to have, or if I go out and I'm wearing a dress versus wearing sneakers and jeans, very different elements to fight with, very different things to work through, and if we are in danger, if we do need to get to safety, how am I going to do that in this attire? Which is a huge thing that we talk about, especially with all sorts of women, just so that they're prepared. It has nothing to do with, don't wear that. It's wear it, but just know your limitations in that. I have a friend, she loves 5-inch stiletto high heels. You know, she's shorter and she just likes to be a little bit taller, which is fine. She likes how they shape her legs and her butt. She looks great. However, I'm like, can you run in those? Like, we went out to Boston one night and you know, Boston has like all those cobblestones and stuff, and she had to take them off because I walk like a speed walker, and she had to take them off to keep up with me. But it was just more of one of those things where it's like, can you get away in this type of attire? I could not. I would break my ankle in 4 different places. But she could move. She could move pretty fast in those, or use them as a weapon, and that's totally fine as long as you're equipped to do that. So.
Well, I don't know how long we talked for.
I'm hoping we're still recording.
I hope we're still recording. That's kind of a good point. But this is day 1 or video 1. Our first step in this process. We'll be doing more of this stuff. I think eventually we'll have a couple of guests that we'd like to bring in to talk about specific things, trauma training, some law enforcement elements, potentially a lawyer. What feedback from you guys will be big here. So what would you like to hear us talk about more? We both have very varied and differential backgrounds between, you know, Allison's master's degree, athletic background, being a female. It's not a lot of really good female voices out there talking about this stuff. And one of the reasons we're doing this together as a team is there's a lot of guys. There's a lot of guys talking about the fight stuff and the self-defense stuff. And there's a couple of women, and that I can think of, that I've seen almost no pairs with a huge dearth of background and training that we can then kind of noodle through this stuff together and hopefully bring. This is really about you guys. This is about bringing good information to you guys and trying to make better information out into the world. I have a enormous man crush on Andrew Huberman, and his impetus for his podcast is his goal was to put better information into the universe, into the social sphere. And that's really what we're trying to do here. Just trying to put better information out there to give better considerations. Some of it might be, we might run up against things that are politically incorrect from time to time. You know, not all of self-defense training, unfortunately, can be politically correct, depending on A, political correctness shifts and changes. B, some of it is edgy and icky from time to time. It just is. It just has to be. So your feedback, guys, is gonna be kind of cool. If you want to comment on this video, please do that. Things you'd like to talk about this more, we can definitely run up quick videos on this or give response videos. We can definitely do further deep dives into these topics. And that's it. So like, share, all that kind of fun stuff. Subscribe, I guess. We're gonna start putting these out there.
Yeah,
cool.
Definitely.
Thank you, Allison. Thank you guys for watching.